On the topic of backcountry and going in for multiple days, there are 3 key requirements that an individual needs to focus on. That is water, food, and shelter. When you go into winter backcountry, let's add to that staying warm and the ability to get dry. This season, I have switched to Argali. Their shelters, I am falling madly in love with them. So I have 2 right now. I have the 1-person Owyhee and I have the 2-person Rincon. The Rincon has a stove jack and they have their titanium stove available to go with that shelter. So today we're going to unbox that shelter and we're going to burn it in. On top of that, if I'm going to carry a stove in, I am going to ditch my jet boil for that trip, and I have a titanium mug here that I plan to do all of my water boiling and cooking off of and or out of. So let's get this video really going here. As you can see, I have some fire building material here. This is dried leaves that I've pulled out of the local environment here at my house, and some small, as you can see here, some small starting wood, and then a little bit some larger wood there as well. I do have a fire starter, which I will be taking some of this with me on my upcoming trip. Then I also have my butane lighter, which I will carry. And I have a flex tail. It's new to me. It is the flex tail, I believe it's the 2 or the 2X, has the light on it, and it is mainly for, or was designed to fill up or inflate your sleeping pads or your pillow or other pieces of gear. It's also going to be used to fuel my stove with air. So we're going to see how that works today as well. So let's, also behind me, I have a cardboard tube. If you watch the YouTube videos from Argali or other folks, or if you go to Argali's website, they recommend 2 people when you first roll your pipe. Unfortunately, I am a one-man show today, so I'm going to utilize this cardboard tube behind me as an extra set of hands so that I can preform that pipe and burn the stove in correctly. So let's get this thing opened up. I will tell you that dealing with Argali is fantastic. They're very responsive in email. They will answer their phone, and if they're not available and if you don't leave a message, they will go through their missed calls and they'll call you back. I've found that out. Shipping is easy. They'll take an order via the internet on their website. They will also take orders over the phone if you call in. Out of experience, I would just recommend placing the order on the internet. That way you make sure that there's no miscommunication on your billing address, your mailing address, where you want your items or your product shipped, especially if you're in a time of need, because they will bend over backwards to get you their product in your hands for an upcoming trip. So here's this box. Again, I have the Rincon. So when you order your titanium stove from Argali off of their website, they already have their stove kits built for the shelters that they have. So if you have a Rincon, or if you're ordering the Rincon, they advertise and will send you 5 feet of pipe. If you go with the larger 4-person Absaroka, it has 6 feet of pipe. So here's my stove pipe, and it comes in this tube. I will grab a Nalgene bottle just so that you can see the comparison of size. And then the weight of this is incredibly light. And then this is the stove itself. It comes in this nice kit. And now we're done with the box and we're gonna move forward. So as you can see, when you receive this, you unbox it. This is where your stove, and this is what your stove and stovepipe is going to look like. 2.1 ounces per foot, and this combined trail ready 3 pounds. In my opinion, that 3 pounds, when it's dead of winter, it's going to be 20 degrees or below, potential snow, maybe a lot of rain. This is a creature comfort that I'm willing to put my big boy leg on for, and I'm going to pack in that extra weight. As I said, I would grab my Nalgene. Here's a standard 1 liter Nalgene bottle, and you can see it's 1 2/3 Nalgene bottle, maybe 2, but then also if you look at the diameter of it. So if you're a Nalgene guy and you carry a Nalgene around, this is basically what you're going to be carrying. And again, 2.1 ounces per feet, so you can do the math. This is less than a pound. Maybe a pound with the case that it's in. And then this is my titanium mug. I like to try and support the different outdoor companies that are supporting us as end users. The Hunter, I'm a big fan of Go Hunt, and I was going to buy the Go Hunt titanium mug. They unfortunately are out of stock. So I went with the next one that's very highly rated. That's the Toaks. And Toaks has a mug, and then they also have what they call their little pot. And I probably will not use the carry bag that this came with, but here is what I'm going to use. Instead of carrying my Jetboil, I'm going to use a little titanium mug here. This holds 16 ounces of water. So I'm going to do some different measurings and make sure that the volume of this cup is going to support some of the backcountry meals that I like to eat, which is typically either Peak Refuel or Heather's Choice. But it does have a little handle so you can put a stick or something underneath it to pull it off when it's really, really hot. And then I'm just gonna have to use a glove when I pull it off my stove. I really hope that this is gonna work. So let's get into the stove itself. This is a really nice little Cordura pack that they have. It's got a nice pouch here. So in this pouch, my plan is to have fire starter for the duration of my trip. Will be in a Ziploc bag and held in this area here. I'll also put a spare Bic lighter in here. I usually rely on my butane torch for the majority of my trip, but to have a small butane lighter, or not just a small Bic lighter in here, I think is going to be key. They do talk about either wearing some type of glove when you're handling your stove, especially when you're putting your stovepipe together, because it is titanium. It's sharp, has sharp edges, sharp corners. The other thing too is if you don't wipe your stove down before burning it in, you will leave your fingerprint marks will get burned in all over your stove. I'm not worried about the fingerprints on my stove. So I am not wearing gloves, I'm not wearing rubber gloves, and I'm not going to wipe this stove down before I start my fire. But this is the base of it. See these legs pop out, it sits flat. So I watched a lot of videos on different titanium and lightweight stoves that are currently on the market. And the Seek stove really caught my attention because it has adjustable legs. We're not always pitching on perfectly even ground, although we really, really try to. And I was slightly leaning towards that stove just because of the ability to adjust your stove so it's sitting level. But you know, I'm swiftly becoming an Argali fan, and I figured their stove comes highly rated with a lot of their fans and their customers, and I've watched the videos and I really like some of the features of this stove. So I know myself, I can use other objects to place underneath the feet that are on this stove to level it out if I really need to. And I can get pretty picky about where I pitch my shelter and try to find the most level place that I can. And that is going to lend towards not having to worry about really leveling out my stove a whole lot. I'll get that figured out in the field. But comes nicely packed, and man, I'm really getting excited to burn this thing in. So here are your stovepipe rings. Those will also be kept here inside the case. And then I have the pack of wing nuts that come with the stove itself. I highly encourage you, if you're interested in a titanium packable stove so that you can have a hot tent, that's the buzzword, that you do your research, because there are several brands, there's several different styles out there. You need to pick the one that's right for you and that you're going to have confidence in. And this one is the right one for me. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at the parts and pieces. The base, this is your top. You know this is the top because it has your stovepipe ring cut out of it. That will go to the back of your stove. So I'm going to go ahead and set that out there. This is my door. So that goes on the front of your stove. Pretty obvious, right? Have your back and your sides. Your side walls have rivets that are pre-threaded. So that's how your wing nuts go and hold this together. This also has male and female. So it pops together for the front and the back. A second set of hands would be awesome right now. Who needs another foot? I need 4 hands. Tell you, one of the other positives about burning in your stove the first time, which burning in the stove helps seat all the metal. It gives a little pre-form to your stovepipe. We're going to address that here in a few minutes when we tackle that project. But it also gives you that chance to put your hands on this piece of equipment prior to taking it out into the field. Because what we do know is we often get put into a scenario where we're setting camp in the dark. I do it often. I would prefer to be able to set camp in under daylight all the time, but the situation does not always allow that. So being able to do things in the dark efficiently is important, and the only way you learn how to do it in the dark is by doing it in the daytime. And then the second thing is when you're doing it wet and cold. When you get wet and cold, sometimes this brain matter starts working correctly. And depending upon how cold you are, you start losing the dexterity and the fine motor skills in your fingers. So taking the time to put this together, burn it in your driveway or near your house, it introduces you to your gear, and you now know how it works, and it's going to make that first time use out in the field even more enjoyable or better. So here we go. Now again, this is the front, so I want to have my stovepipe at the back. I'm going to go ahead and drop that down. My holes are lining up nicely. Another thing that you want to do, these are going to go in a Ziploc bag, and I might even take some type of model paint or spray paint, tape these off, some type of maybe a high heat paint. That actually is going to work better than anything else. Especially if I can find a bright orange high heat paint, I'm going to shoot some of that paint on these wing nuts, because if you drop these on the ground, you're gonna have a hard time finding them, especially once they get hot and they start to turn black, that heat bluing. Good luck finding them if you drop them in the dirt, the leaves, whatever environment you're hunting in. I'm also going to probably order an extra bag of the wing nuts and my stovepipe rings, and I'll keep probably 1 or 2 spare stovepipe rings in this pouch and 2 or 3 spare wing nuts. In the chance that I do drop them while I'm out, I can still put my stove together and run my stove with my hot tent. If you watch the video, it is strongly recommended that for your burn-in process, you do not tighten these wing nuts all the way the first time that you burn the stove, because the titanium panels, they're going to flex a little bit and potentially expand, and you want to provide room for that expansion and flex to happen. And then once you have it, after that first burn in, when you assemble it out in the field, then you can go ahead and just tighten them down when you put it together before you light it off the first time. Right now, trying to get my holes to line up correctly. And again, this is why I state it's nice to do something like this for the first time. Daylight in a controlled environment, so you can just make sure that everything that you do, you know how this is going to go together, and you're not under headlamp wet and cold from a day's pack in. Or maybe you know, I will often be in a situation where I pack in with enough time to go for a hunt. So I'll doff my pack, I'll unload all of my camp gear at my pitch site, recock my pack for the hunt, and then I go hunt for the remaining daylight. And when I come back, I have now forced myself into that position of setting camp in the dark. I do it often. And so doing this now pays dividends than going in and doing this for the first time in the dark. There you go. This is the Argali T3, and the stove box itself has now been put together. What do I have left? I have my stovepipe, 5 feet of it again. This is my damper, and these are my rings. So there's going to be 2 ways that we can damp or tamp this stove or tamp the fire. It's by this here. It will slide into the stovepipe here. And then also we can do it up here at the front. Control your airflow in several different manners. So next step, let's go ahead and tackle this stovepipe. All right, so as we're gonna prep for this, hopefully without any foul language or any blood, drawing any blood, I have my 5 rings, 1 for each foot of pipe. And again, I will be reaching out to Argali and ordering some spare pipe rings, stovepipe rings, and a couple of extra wing nuts, because I know me, I'm really hard on gear, and there is potential that I might drop or lose one of these at some point, and I want to have backup so that I can run my stove appropriately when I need it. I'm going to go ahead and set these down here out of the way where hopefully they don't get bumped around or lost. Go ahead and get comfortable for this evolution. If anybody's worked with sheet metal at any point, I did for a short period of time. I worked in the HVAC business during a break in naval service, and I still carry some scars from when I was working in the sheet metal industry in HVAC, and this is no different. This is almost razor sharp, and these edges will definitely draw blood if you're not careful. So if you watch Argali's video, Go Hunt has a really good video on it as well. When you're rolling your pipe for the first time, you want to make sure you do not have any bends or dimples or kinks in the pipe because once we fire this thing up and it kind of like cures the metal, whatever bends, creases, kinks that we have in this stovepipe, they will remain in this pipe for the life of the pipe. And that can or may impact the lifespan of this stovepipe. So if we had two people here, we could easily roll this pipe and work together in putting the stovepipe rings on. But again, since I don't, I'm going to utilize this cardboard tube here that I have and hopefully get this rolled without any kinks, dimples, creases, or degrading my new pipe material. And again, hopefully without drawing blood. And I think this is going to work like a champ. Maybe not. We got one. So I'm going to get one ring on each end to secure this pipe, and then I'll start manipulating them, spacing them out evenly. I think. Seeing just like that, we just put kinks in this brand new pipe. So we had it pretty good. But we'll just pop them out as we go. So change of plan. I'm going to get more than one. I'm going to get more than one on here. See, just like that, I didn't even realize that I had a third one down here on this end. So I'm using this stove for the first time in a couple of weeks. I'm doing a pack-in trip in Western Maryland, and they've already had single-digit temperatures. So I 100% believe this stove is going to pay itself off in dividends on this upcoming trip. Oh, we are almost there. Look at that. Look at that. This would have been far easier if I would have had a second person here, but it is feasible to do it by yourself if you come up with a plan, have the right materials. you can get it done. There we go. Look at that. And then this is the base of your stovepipe. This is what connects my 5-foot length to the stove box itself. This is also where you put your damper plate in there, and then it also has a screen. So let's take this and go get one step closer to burning this baby in. All right, I've got my natural fire starter here, and I also have a man-made fire starter here as well. Go ahead and pull my torch out. I keep my torch in this plastic bag, not to keep it dry, but I don't use synthetic face paint. That's all I used for a long time, and I don't like the smell of it. I don't like the way it feels on my face. It typically makes my skin or my face itch, and then I end up scratching it, smearing it all around. I get it all over my fingers. And I'm just not a big fan of it. And at the end of the day, when you get back to camp, now you have all this synthetic cream all over your face that, I mean, I don't want to go crawl around in my bag with it. And so I've started using a cork. And you can't use just any cork. I have found that champagne corks work great, and there's some different liquor bottles that have actual cork. Most of your modern wine bottles, wine corks, they're synthetic, so you can't use that. But I mean, when I say this is champagne, I mean this is like a really low end sparkling wine that you can get at pretty much any grocery store. At Cook's, I think it might be Cook's brand, a Brut. But again, champagne cork, a lot of your like high-end Scotch or whiskey corks will work great. You just light it on fire that's why I carry a torch, burn it up really good, and then just smear it all over your face. It works like a champ, comes off really, really easy, has a natural smell to it. And it's what I like to do. Little face paint pro tip for you if you're not already familiar with that. But then also, it might make lighting a fire here real handy, especially with this synthetic fire starter. We'll get a base of leaves in here. Now again, normally I'm going to have my stovepipe inserted already, and it's going to be going through the stove jack of the tent. But because of the wind that I'm having today and it's freestanding, it's just not. I don't think it's going to work out that well. So we will put it on after I get this thing burning. Can hear that titanium flexing already, and I don't know if you saw that, the way it popped, it almost dropped that front leg backwards. So just be aware of that when you're burning this in for the first time. But I've got a good fire going in there right now. But my new heat source by Argali, thank you guys for a great product, and I will give you a better review here at the end of December when I come out of my backcountry muzzleloader hunt leading up into Christmas. Be limitless.